Hi everyone, welcome to this snack draft play-by-play. If you have not watched my first video on the snack draft and how the rules work, be sure to check that out first, otherwise none of this will make sense to you. So our snack draft is currently underway. We're currently in round 9 or something, so I should be able to review some of the strategies I used in my earlier rounds. This video will cover the first 3 rounds, but make no mistake, the first few rounds are always the ones that are most exciting and has the most decisions. Yeah, the action is very much front-loaded in the first few rounds, so I can spend a lot of time talking about my picks. For the purposes of this video and upcoming play-by-plays, I'll refer to players by the seed number. The first player to start is seed 1, the last one to draft is seed 8. For this particular draft, I was randomized with seed 3. So this is a very interesting seed position. I'll explain more in a moment. We'll also be weaving through the corp and runner side since I'm drafting them simultaneously, and as you'll see later, some of my picks have an impact on, some of my runner picks have an impact on the corp draft and vice versa. So let's begin. Seeds 1 and 2 drew a very odd opening of Caprice into Batty. So this basically places a stake in a lot of stake actually in Jinteki. You look at two people, they are both drafting red cards. I think I should avoid the red faction, so I can draft anything except red cards. This was probably the best card that I could pick. In fact, I would consider this to be the best decision I made throughout this entire draft, both for the corp and runner side combined. So the reason why ABT is such a powerful pick in this particular seed, given the opening, was that I could effectively wall off HB from the two Jinteki drafters. As you might have noticed, even though there are 4 distinct corp factions, there is actually a pairing. HB cards tend to be paired with Jinteki cards. They both like to, dig at each other's card pool, and same thing for MB and Wayland. You think of cards like Seesaws and Mid-Seasons, tagging cards that go very well with Scorched Earth and boom, Wayland cards. So MB and Wayland are kind of in the same package, in the same vein. Jinteki and HB are usually together. Jinteki loves to borrow brain damage from HB, and sometimes in Glacier Jinteki you like to borrow cards like Eli and Ichi, the good ice. Similarly, HB often borrows Caprice Nisei and Marcus Batty, both very powerful defensive upgrades available to Jinteki. So the person most likely to impinge on my card pool, my purple card pool, are the players who drafted red. But if I get initiative on them, if I get priority, because after that draft, I get 2 drafts before I pass the baton back to them. So in this way, with my 2 drafts, I can wall off the HB card pool to them by making the 2 most impactful HB picks. So in this situation, after drafting ABT, I was definitely planning to wall the Jinteki players off by them drafting Project Vitruvius, which makes entry to HB almost impossible for the red players. With the 2 best agendas, very big reasons why you play HB, gone from the card pool, it's a lot easier to stake my claim to the HP card pool. Now, there's always the risk of someone drafting HB as well from one of the remaining players, and that was something I accepted as well. But the beautiful thing about my seating is that no matter who joins in the HB foray, I could be very sure that I would come out at least on parity, if not ahead of the other person who competes with me. Say, for example, someone decides to draft a bunch of agendas as well, get a good agenda suite in HB, for example, by doing this. Well, I can't draft Vitruvius here anymore. However, when the priority is passed back to me, I get 2 picks. I will be able to take 2 cards before the other HB drafter gets their turn. With these 2 picks, I can pick some other very powerful cards in the faction, such as this. Now, when you look at it this way, not only are we even on agendas, I have 2 good agendas, they have 2 good agendas, but I come out ahead by drafting the key ETF identity, which is a very big reason why you play HB in the first place. So basically, this 3-2 advantage I would have over the other HB drafter, if there were to be one on my right, is the reason why ABT is such a good pick. No matter whether there's a HB drafter or not, a competing HB drafter, shall I say, I'm always at least coming out even, if not ahead, because I get to pick more of the good cards. Cards like Baltic Labor as well, a very important card that I would want to try to snipe as well, depending on what cards the other HB drafter picks. But for now, we'll move on to the runner side. Seeds 1 and 2, Picked up Temujin Contract and Faust. Two very solid cards, can't argue about the openings. I went with Cipher. In the same vein as ABT being the best decision of my entire draft, this Cipher was easily the worst decision of my entire draft. You might think, well, Cipher just completely turned the game upside down when it was released in Quorum. Surely it must be a good card to draft. And I thought so too. But as you see the draft later pan out, it actually is really, really awful if you don't have Parasite with it. Turns out Cipher isn't OP at all if you don't have Parasite. Because, well, yeah, sure, you get to reset the ice strength and it works very well with Anarch regular breakers and it saves you a lot of money even on pumpable breakers. But really, it's not all that impressive and it's pretty expensive to install as well. Not to mention, you're giving up a card slot that could go to a power card like Count Siphon, like Magnum Opus. Cards that would give you way more bang for your buck than a console. Like, taking up your console slot means that you're restricting yourself, right? You can't pick up other consoles. Desperado, that's a pretty good console. You can't pick that up either. So yeah, picking Cipher because of a combination of reasons. Because it's a card that it is a breaker support card. So drafting the support card before drafting the breakers themselves is a mistake in itself. Because if you don't get the breakers that you want, you're very far behind. So not only am I drawing a card that is very dependent on drafting other prerequisite cards to make work, I'm also eating up my console slot, thereby restricting my flexibility. All these reasons make Cipher a very, very bad pick in my position. It would have been a much better pick if I was somewhere later, further down the line, and with Parasite still in the card pool, I might have been able to make a run for the Paracipher combo. Not this time, unfortunately, and you would always draft Parasite before Cipher. Parasite is always useful, even without Cipher, whereas Cipher could be very useless if you don't get your draft right. So let's hop back over to the Corp draft. On the right side, sitting to my right, seats 4 to 8 make their drafts, and it's amazing. I squeal with joy inside me because they just drafted 5 yellow cards in a row. So while they're all gonna have a full-out brawl over the yellow card pool, I'm peacefully with myself, the only one with the HB card pool. So at this point, what would you draft in these two slots? From this point on, it's useful to think of your picks as pairs of picks instead of single picks every time priority is passed to you. The reason for this is because in between these two picks, my other opponent drafters will only get 4 chances to pick. And given that I can see the archetypes they're going for, I would be able to more or less predict what cards they would pick and what they wouldn't. So considering the second card, the card that you would draft on your next pass, is actually very important because this will influence your ordering of the drafts, of your picks rather. And oftentimes, what you decide to pick for your second card will often influence what you pick for your first card and vice versa. This is a very useful tactic especially for this particular seat number 3. So yeah, this is some good advice to take into consideration if you're doing a snack draft of your own. But anyway, when you see this light blue background, feel free to pause the video and think of what you would draft in my position. So as I alluded to earlier, the draft for this spot is definitely Project Vitruvius. By drafting it, I essentially lock these two out of HB. If they were to jump into HB right now, they would have a horrible agenda suite and would find it very difficult to advance their win condition when they don't have access to 3-2 agendas. The question is, what do I draft in this spot? Well, given that everyone has been clamoring for their own win condition, oftentimes the card that you draft is determined by what everyone else's drafts. If everyone starts drafting economy, you need to get in on the economy game as well, otherwise you'll be the one losing out. Similarly, people have been drafting a lot of win conditions. Caprice is gone, Batty is gone, Sansan is gone. Hard-hitting news, mid-seasons, all these win conditions are gone. So it only makes sense for me to pick a win condition for this slot, and none better than Baltic Labor. Obviously, with 6 3-2s, Baltic Labor is the perfect pick for this slot, and it is quite important because someone like Seat 6 could easily steal my Baltic Labor because they're running fast advanced strategies with Bew and probably Astro Script themselves. So this is another important consideration. Pick cards that you think might go on the next pass. If people are probably going to pick Baltic and it is crucial to your strategy or win condition, like there are not many other cards in the card pool that can replicate what Baltic Labor does at this efficiency, you've got to pick it. So this was quite a no-brainer set of picks right here, and given how the draft turned out, given Seed 1 and 2's picks, I realized that I had the entire HB faction to myself, the entire HB card pool to myself. So basically, a lot of my picks from this point on were very smooth sailing. So this is usually where you want to position yourself. Normally, you would have a 2-2-2-2 faction split, where each faction has 2 players splitting the card pool between them. However, if you manage to hog a faction for yourself, you are in a much better position compared to everyone else. Of course, this usually boils down to luck, but in my case, the ability to wall off the Jinteki players from switching over to HB was a very crucial factor. Now let's move over to the runner side, where things are not so straightforward. As I mentioned, the ill-advised pick of Cipher bit me in the butt. Parasite went away. Yeah, that's a big problem. What do you do in this situation? Think about it. Now, a lot of the cards are gone, but as I mentioned earlier, one important thing is that you have to adapt to the situation, and when people start clamoring for a certain type of card, you need to get in on the action as well. From this, you notice the factions shaping out. Seed 2 and Seed 4 are probably going for Anarch. Faust usually stays in Anarch, and the pick of Medium after account Siphon suggests Anarch. It's easier, I mean, you often see Anarch splashing Siphon, and while you do see Criminal splashing Medium as well for multi-access, it seems like very unlikely that Seed 4 is going for Criminal because Temujin and Desperado has been taken. So basically, I'm squeezed on both sides by Anarch, so I need to be very mindful of my picks because we will have overlapping card pools and I'm squeezed on both sides by them. Now, the big hint to what I should pick in this slot is this card right here. If you think about R&D multi-access in the Anarch faction, there are only 2 real cards that you could pick. Medium, Keyhole. If someone picks the Medium, it starts an arms race. 3 Anarch players, 2 R&D multi-access cards, 1 person is going to be left in the dust. Given that I'm in the middle, I can always guarantee that if someone picks the Medium, I'll get the Keyhole and vice versa. However, if the Medium gets picked, I need to pick the Keyhole. My opponent in Seed 2 is also aware of this fact, so if I don't pick Keyhole at this juncture, I'm giving them 2 shots at taking my Keyhole, and then I'll have no R&D access left to myself. So that would be the absolute worst position that I could be in. Even though there are a lot more important cards that I should be picking at this point, like Economy and Card Draw, there is no question that I need to pick Keyhole right here. The question is, what do I plan to pick in this spot? Now, I have Breaker support in Cipher, I have multi-access in Keyhole. I need either a Breaker or Economy or Draw. And at this point, I think Breakers are not that important because the best one has already been taken. I would take Faust if it was still left because it's so good compared to everything else and synergizes very well with Cipher. But otherwise, I think I'd rather take Economy or Card Draw. In this case, Economy. Simply because if I don't take it, I'm giving my Anarch opponent another 2 chances at it. And don't forget, Daily Cast is going, Peddler is going. There's a lot of basic cards that are going away very soon. So I need to get in on the action. This is why I chose Lucky Find. This is not the most conventional Economy card, but there weren't many better options. KD Jones was another one on my mind. It was between Lucky Find and KD Jones. And while KD Jones doesn't cause influence, the problem with KD is that with my first 2 drafts, I'm already locking myself into an expensive strategy. Cipher costs 5, Keyhole costs 4. I can't be playing an Economy card that takes so long to set up. I need Burst Economy to get me into the action ASAP, and this is why I could justify splashing my first bits of influence on Lucky Find. One should also note that before the Keyhole pick, I was actually contemplating jumping into the Shaper faction. Cipher being at 1 influence actually left myself open to the possibility of, being flexible. However, given the picks, there were 2 players who seemed to be homing in on the Shaper faction. Being the third wheel in the Shaper faction seems very suboptimal, especially given that I don't have the good cards that they have. Clone Chip, SMC, Magnum Opus. So I felt that going to Shaper was the wrong choice. And given that I was pressured to pick a Keyhole here, I may as well just stake my claim in the faction and commit myself to Anarch. So I think the gist of it is never fear to commit yourself to a faction. In fact, committing yourself to a faction early on might actually be a good thing. Like with the corp case, by picking ABT, I scared everyone off from picking purple. If I not picked the ABT and I gone for a generic card like Global Food or NAPD, you bet someone else would have picked purple, and yeah, they would be the one having the advantage instead. So sometimes staking your claim in a faction is a very powerful move. Similarly, by committing to Anarch here, I am establishing my presence, and I can move forward with a clearer mind on what cards I need to pick next. So I have multi-access, breaker support, and money setup. I'll need something else in my next pass. What do you think I need to draft? This is what happens after that. Most notably, the AI breaker that I was thinking of getting is now gone. Ether in Keyhole is a very good combination, especially with Cypher, to reduce the cost of breaking with Ether, but that's no longer an option. The other econ options also went away, so this is why I needed the Lucky Find. Everyone is sniping at economy. So what do you think I should pick here? I won't review this until the next video, so have a think about it. Meanwhile, this is my quote draft, which has been going really well. Again, no one is impinging on my faction card pool, so everything's pretty safe, but that said, there are still some very important picks that need to be made here. Think about it, and I'll be back in the next video to continue the play-by-play. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching and happy net running. I'll see you around.